Hello, welcome to the Tea Party Hardy channel. In this review of The Great, we're going to go over the things that we think you need to know in order to decide do you want to watch this or not. So, with that in mind, let's get started. This is the story of Catherine the Great, told in an extremely fictional way. They are not pretending in any shape or form to be doing a historical account. We'll come back to that later. Now, if you're okay with watching a show that has historical figures that has nothing to do with history, okay, you can move on and watch the show with that box checked. Next box. How is the acting? The acting is 99% marvelous. The performances are really, really well done. Nicholas Hoult, who some of us know very well from About a Boy, as that's on our Christmas watch list each year. Anyways, he is fantastic as the psychotic king. Okay, everybody else does a really, really good job. There is no complaints about the acting. So if you want a show with really good acting, bam, you can watch the show. If you want a show that has good to great cinematography, okay, bam, you can check that box too. If you're into period clothing, bam, you can check that box. All right, what about some boxes that are a little bit on the wobbly side? The show was billed as a comedy satire. Now, satire is an interesting form of entertainment. And to call satire comedy, that's tricky. Because comedy requires, in the modern definition, you to laugh. There's not that many laughing moments because it's a normal drama that has funny moments in it. Because all dramas better have funny moments in it, or it's called boring. Okay, so is it a comedy? No, it's in no shape or form a comedy. Is it a satire? Satire is way hard to put your thumb on, so I will leave that up to you. Many think it is, so fine. I have no opinion either way because it's just too complicated of a definition. It's so much easier to see in a cartoon figure when it's satire than it is on a 10-hour show. Okay, so if you're okay with it not really being a comedy and you're not really going to laugh, I mean, there's funny moments, but again, every show has funny moments, then bam, you can go to the next one. Now, let's go back and look a little bit at that history thing. The accents are all British, which is bizarre because it takes place in Russia, but okay, I guess why not? It's a mostly British cast. Ironically, the lead is played by an American who's playing a German who moves to Russia, and she even does it with a British accent. So yeah, the accents are just really weird. The next thing that's really weird, that makes all the blue check marks on Twitter go bonkers when you bring it up, only in one direction of course, is this is Russia in the 1700s, and this particular presentation has an enormous amount, by that context, of Africans. Africans in 1700 Russia, I looked it up because I wanted to speak intelligently before I made this review. They did exist, and some actually did exist in the military. Now, whether or not they existed as an ambassador for Sweden towards Russia, yeah, I don't know about that. I could not find that. And I couldn't find other examples of captains. And I mean, there's a lot of black soldiers in this Russian army in this production. And when you consider where Russia is, especially in relationship to Africa, no, it's ridiculously unlikely. When you also consider where Russia is, the idea that they didn't have people from China or Mongolia or any of those Asian nations which share a border with China, the casting on this movie is an epic fail, though the acting is superb. The casting isn't. Look, when you do a production, you're supposed to hire people that look the part and therefore can additionally act the part. When you reverse those two, you're supposed to only do that if you're on a budget. This show is not on a budget. It's not. It's an extremely lavish production. So the casting, one can only gather, since it's not based on budget, is to shove false agenda. And because it's British, I won't attack them like I would if it were an American production. But I will suggest this, and that is, if it were an American production, what I would have interjected is, to have all these black people appearing in Europe in the 1700s, and Frozen 2 did it as well, is to erase, and this doesn't apply to Britain, is to erase all the hard work of the civil rights movement in America, because they fought hard to be treated, rightfully so, as equals, etc. Okay? And by pretending that there were black people everywhere in the old days, and they were captains, and they were this, means that fight never needed to happen. Because you don't need a civil rights if everybody's being treated hunky-dory. Oh, sorry about that pun. That was totally an accident. All right, so anyways, that's that. And let's take a look here. So again, I told you I wanted to do some research on this. Here is the cast for The Great. It's a horrible name. It's an absolutely horrible name. When we get out of the presentation era of this show and people go to look it up, it's going to be a nightmare to find. So let's see. Elle Fanning, wonderful job. Nicholas Hoult, wonderful job. Phoebe Fox, she's intriguing. It's an interesting character. She's a brilliant actress. Again, there's no complaints about the acting in the show, regardless of the color. What are you doing being cast in that role? You don't cast a 3-foot-tall little person to play Michael Jordan. It's ridiculous. Okay. And then Sacha Dhawan plays Orlov, and I'm like, and I don't know where he's from. I'm guessing India, but I don't know. I'm not going to pretend that I do. But nonetheless, he's awfully brown. And here's the real Orlov. Awfully white. So you have to forgive that. And again, when you go on IMDb and you read all the reviews, the people that bring up what I just brought up, they go bonkers. But again, they only go bonkers in one direction. If you've got a cast that's all Chinese and they're replaced by all whites, and you've got it doesn't matter. They only go bonkers when it goes one direction. Let's see. Okay, so here's this cast. And what's interesting about this show is it's about Catherine the Great. It's on right now. It just jumped on Hulu a couple weeks ago. And so you can see there's a lot. There's the ambassador for Sweden to Russia. You don't, when you think of Sweden, that's no, it's just silly. It really is silly. And so are the British accents. And I mentioned that first for a reason, because that's pretty darn silly too. All right, so then I went over to Russia, because Russia's actually got a production going on from 2014 to current about Catherine the Great. She is really a hot commodity right now. And so it's like, well, let's look at the Russians and see who the Russians cast, because, it's a story about Russians. And ironically, no, not at all. Everybody in the cast from Russia doing their history, yeah, they're Russian and they're white because they're Russian. I don't know who this is, but that really looks like a Captain Kirk shirt. So that's how the Russians feel about it. And it's like, well, it's just the English being the English. Okay, but it gets stranger, because this is Catherine the Great from England, 2019. Also another TV show starring Helen Mirren, the lovely and talented Helen Mirren, who will always be Morgana to me. That's an Excalibur reference if you haven't seen it. And look, here's all these other productions. And every single one of these productions, this one was really good, are all, they all have Russians, white people playing Russians, because Russians are either white or Chinese or Mongolian or of that nature. They're not African, because that's a different continent. It's not Asia. Let's see, and so let's take a look at this cast, and they're British. Excuse me. And here again, now this is England, and we go back to being pasty. I don't know if they do British accents on the show, because I haven't seen this one. His dad was in Willy Wonka and sadly got killed in the third Three Musketeers movie. Looks just like his dad, though, except for he's alive. And he's in the very first episode of Black Mirror and many other shows. Wonderful actor. All right, let's see. Pasty, 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 pasty. So there you go. Excuse me. All right, anything else about this? What else do we got? Oh, yeah. Another Catherine the Great from 2015. And this one, too, is from Russia. What? No Africans in the court? I don't understand. But don't you know? Hulu showed it. Why am I hammering this? Because everybody but one understands what casting means. It's just silly. Oh, highly recommend. If you want the history, don't watch The Great. If you want the history, watch this. It's really good, and this lady rocks it. I don't know if she's done anything else beyond that. I don't have time to look it up right now, but really well done. All right, now, what do we have left? Let's see. We have, I guess, the story. Oh, and let's also knock this out of the way. If you were a fan of the Smurfs and you notice how the word Smurf was able to be used in pretty much any context, then you're going to love this show for the F word. Because they use the F word to amounts that, it's funny because like so many of the critiques on IMDb readers were saying, oh, it's so well written, it's so well written. Dude, good writers don't use a singular word to that level, anywhere near that level. Episode 3 in particular, I swear it feels like 80% of the vocabulary in that episode is simply the F word. They never say get out. They never say leave. They never say stop talking. They always say F off. It's embarrassing how much they use it. And again, that's the opposite of good writing. Particularly in English, where we have so many languages that we've been filtered down into English, that we have a huge repertoire, see, there's an example, of words available. And to just constantly say F, 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 no, that is the opposite of good writing. It's also part of the genre that we're getting from the millennial generation, is using so many cuss words that we have one of two things that's going to happen historically afterwards. One, they're going to never be shown to kids because there's a reason we call them bad words. And there's a reason we call it adult language. So there's going to be just generations that aren't going to get to participate in some of these productions that are really worthy of family viewing, minus the language. Or we're going to go the other way, and they're not going to be bad words, but that's not how it works. People want to have bad words at their disposal to use so that they can show they're bad. That's kind of how that works. You can't be a rebel if you're in alliance with the group. And the only way to show that you're a rebel and that you're a bad tookus is to have that in your quiver. So just as a species, we like to have that repertoire, that reservoir of bad words. So in other words, they're just making a huge financial mistake to cast out so much of the audience in so many of these shows by just dumping in garbage language. And when you go back and you watch, because film goes back 100 years now, the cinema that's still carried on, that people still enjoy, is the stuff that's absent of all that. And it started in the late 60s, early 70s when they started pumping it all in. And it's interesting because if you look at the classics from that era forward that we do consider classics, they don't have that much language. It's not a coincidence. It's really not. So that word's in there a lot. And I'm going to say it again, an embarrassingly large amount. All right, what else do you need to know? It's a very entertaining show. I only hesitate because there were people going, it's not entertaining. I could only stand the first 15 minutes. It's because it's not a history lesson. Boy, is it not a history lesson. The English accents, the Africans in the court, the list goes on. But as a show, and the language, if you can get all those barriers and you can survive all those barriers, then it's pretty fun. One person did make the remark that it's heavily redundant and cycles the same pendulum, that it goes, okay, we got to do this, and then we got to do that, and then we got to do this, and we got to do that. That's kind of true in a lot of shows. So yeah, okay, it's true, but it's not horrible. And it's like, maybe it's not even noticeable if you don't take the red pill. But I do recommend the show if you can get past all those hurdles. It's pretty fun. It is season 1, which is implying there's a season 2. So that is a gigantic spoiler I'm going to throw out there. It's season 1. So if you're looking for, the closest thing I can compare it to, and it's such a mean comparison, is Washington Spies, originally just called Turn. Turn, Washington Spies. Originally just called Turn, but just like The Great, it's a really stupid title, so they changed it in season 2. Don't be surprised if they don't change the title of this if there is a season 2 for the same reason. But who knows if there's going to be a season anything because of the cootie that's just wiping out production. Because how do you do productions with social distancing? How do you do productions with face mask? Yeah, they haven't worked that out yet. So nobody knows what's going to happen for how do we do that? I mean, unless we just pay attention to the fact that, if you're under 50, you're going to get the cootie. You might get a little sick. There's a teeny weeny chance it's going to take you down, but there's a teeny weeny chance that everything's going to take you down, from crossing the street to driving your car to who knows. I mean, who knows? Life is not forever, and there's issues in it. But anyway, back to the show. It's a lot like Turn, Washington Spies, in that was a great show, but oh my god, the history was atrocious. It was like a Rubik's Cube that they had rearranged everything and put all the stuff in the wrong order. I mean, most of it happened, but not. Again, just imagine that Rubik's Cube with the timeline on each face, and then you just twist it all around like, dude, no way. So, anyways, that's my review for season 1. Good show. Excellent acting. Way too many cuss words. And actually, that's not true. There's barely any cuss words in the show. There's just the F-bomb. They really don't use many other cuss words at all, because I started watching for it. I'm like, are they using any other cuss words? Nope. That writer just has an obsession with the F word. And the one that writes it the most is the creator, because he wrote, I started noticing his name. He wrote at least, I don't want to say for sure, but a majority of the shows. And he's the one that's obsessed with the F word. The other writers didn't use it as much. They had to for continuity. But and that's the other thing historically, is like, do you really think that these royal leaders had such garbage mouths constantly? There's no evidence of that. I'm not saying they're pristine. Oh, no. But no. But again, it's not a history show. So anyways, that's the review. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you in the future.